Good morning. This is March 2024, and this morning we're going to talk with Bernadette Langthorne, who's Bernadette Kay, for those people who know her by her maiden name. And we wanted to talk to Bernadette just about some history of growing up in Hercote, some of the information. Nipigon and Hercote, Dorian, Red Rock are all so well connected that it's interesting to have history from all of that. So
Yeah.
just tell us, Bernadette, about maybe how your family ended up in Hercote.
Well, my mom was originally from Dorian. My grandparents settled there in the late 1800s, and so she grew up in Dorian. My dad was actually born in Manitoulin, and a few of my aunts and uncles moved north from there and settled in Hercote, and eventually my grandparents and my dad, who was one of the younger siblings, moved up to join them.
Okay, you need some last names there so that we get a
Okay,
connection.
so my mother's maiden name was Ellis.
Oh,
So,
rings a bell.
yeah, the Springbank Farm in Dorian is where they settled, and my cousin Sid Ellis still owns the family farm. Um, my grandmother came from a place in Finland, from Vasa, and they had a huge horse farm there, and they also made tar for the wood chips. So for sealing them up, so that was one of their byproducts from the farm. My grandfather came from England, Grandpa Ellis, and he came as a home child. So basically from an orphanage in England, and then came to Canada, lived with a family, and then moved to Thunder Bay, and then eventually Dorian.
Wow, interesting. So that was the war years?
Yes.
Wow, that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
And then my dad's parents, my grandmother was Irish, came from County Armagh, and my grandfather was born in Canada, but English descendant. So,
You've got a wide range of
yes,
backgrounds there. For sure.
definitely.
Okay,
So,
and your family,
my parents were Floyd and Estelle Kay. I have one sister, Eleanor, who has recently passed. She grew up in Hercote and then went to high school at Lakeview in Thunder Bay. So they were bused. Her and my oldest brother Les were bused to Thunder Bay for high school. My two younger brothers, Roger and Dwight, they both went to Nipigon as well as I did.
okay.
And Roger lives in Whitehorse, Yukon. My brother Dwight lives in Pass Lake, and my brother Les lives in Thunder Bay.
Oh, wow.
And I moved the shortest distance away to Nipigon.
Okay, so now when we talked before, we are just talking about that little community of Hercote was very busy.
It was.
Community. So maybe just describe some of the things that were in Hercote at that time.
Okay, some of the things that, like, I remember, there was DeLeff's Hotel. That was down in the village. It was Eva DeLeff. I can't remember her husband's name. She stands out very much in my mind. Across the road from there was Jimmy Singleton's pool hall, and he had a junkyard. And next to that was Danielson's, where at one time was the post office in Hercote. So Mrs. Danielson was the postmistress. Then there was a store also down in the village across from where the station used to be. All that was left when I was growing up of that was the water tower was still there. So that was Kay McCashew had the store. Nettles lived there. They at one time had a mink farm in Herkett.
Wow. So they farmed the mink.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So that's a really vague memory for me from when I was younger, but that was Ethel and Jimmy Nuttall. And then Alonzo had the float planes and that down at the Herkett Dock.
Right.
And they were always really busy.
So were they busy with tourists? Or were they busy with their own... What would they have been busy with the planes, do you think? I can't even remember here.
No.
I know I connect them with the planes, but I can't connect them with why they were flying all the time.
I think some outfitting at that time. And, of course, they had the commercial fishery, too.
Oh, right.
And Chevier's had a nice house. And...
So now I remember a hall there, community hall, right?
Yes, there was it was a Women's Institute Hall that was also down across from the hotel, right before the S Corners in Herkett.
Yeah.
It was there, and we had an old ring shack at one time, and well, the original ring shack burnt, and then I believe it was I think it was Great Lakes Paper, gave us a building that used to be a bunkhouse. So that was the long ring shack that we had.
Okay.
And at one time they had a shooting range in there. And used to have a great big wood stove made of, I believe it was made of a barrel. And David Dupuy, his dad, couldn't tell you what his real name was. It was always Frenchie.
Okay.
He looked after the rink when I was little and flooded the ice and always had the fire going for us. And then...
And where was that located?
Right behind where the Herkett Community Center is now.
Right behind up by the highway?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think my boys played hockey there.
Oh, probably.
Because it was outdoor at night, which was different for the kids having played in the Nipigon Arena.
Yes.
To go there and play hockey. I can remember that many, many times going there.
And we had broomball for the girls and hockey for the boys because girls couldn't play hockey back then.
Yeah.
And family skating most nights. We had figure skating classes there. Always the Herkett Winter Carnival.
Right.
So in 1988, that would have been their 50th carnival. So it's been going for a few years.
And what was the organization group?
It was the Herkett Community Center was the organizing group, but I think every organization kind of pitched in, like the firemen had their thing, and there was always something happening. What people do is disking now. For the carnival, we used to disc on the ice.
Right.
So that was always a big draw, a lot of people. Carnival dances at one time, when we didn't have a hall in Herkett, was always held at the Dorian Hall. And then when the school closed, then they turned the school into the community center. And it was, when I started school, it was a 2-room school. Then they added the portable on to house kindergarten, and then we ended up going to Dorian School when the Herkett School closed, and then for 7 and 8 we went to Red Rock Public.
It was interesting about the school closing because I just found my articles in the newspaper and I had put them on Facebook. Just that what a kerfuffle there was from the people there because it was was closing. You think it closed because the population dwindled?
Possibly, and there was, like, Dorian isn't all that far away.
Right.
So,
it was the idea of 2 schools so close together,
yes,
right?
I think so.
You're right. Yeah.
So we all ended up in Dorian, so that meant busing like further, and then when we went to when I was in school in Dorian, we used to get on the bus to go home, and we used to drive right past Turget and go to almost Black Sturgeon, where we met the bus from the high school and picked up the high school kids, and then they came back and went back through Herget. So I got out of school at like 3:30 and got home at 5.
Oh.
So
And then you came to Red Rock to school then.
Red Rock grade 7 and 8, and then to the high school there.
Wow. Lots of busing in your young life as a student, for sure.
Yeah. And
we forget about that because there's lots of busing now, and it's just automatic for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody to take the bus. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you live 3 blocks, you get a bus ride if you want to.
Yeah.
I read a little bit where that's going to change in the fall, that they want kids to walk a little bit farther and reduce the busing. But yeah, busing must have been a lengthy thing. You're right, when you're out in the rural community.
And so
how's your memory for any teachers that you had in school, Bernadette?
Mrs. McClellan,
right?
She taught in Herget. We had Mrs. Fowler was my kindergarten teacher, I believe, and Mrs. Adams.
Right.
Mrs. Kivalotti.
Okay.
Then in Dorian, Bev Delgadis was the principal.
Right.
We had Mr. Modine, Mrs. Schaff, Mr. Brown. Gary Brown was a student teacher when I was, I think, in grade 5.
Okay.
I had Donnie Modine in grade 4. We had Mr. Abbott for a while.
I supply taught for quite a few of those teachers in Dorian.
Mm-hmm.
I remember those names for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's all I remember.
That's good. That's good memory of teachers that you you had, for sure.
Then in Red Rock, there was Mr. Knott, Mrs. Cormier. One of the teachers that taught in Red Rock that my brothers had was Cy Palmer.
Right.
And he was really interested, my family trapped, and he was really interested in learning about that.
Okay.
So, yeah, he visited the house often.
So we might as well add in there that Cy Palmer is also an author.
Yes.
And wrote several books, which are available in the Nipigon Library for sure. I have them at home because he lived
have them.
He lived up the street from me on Green Mantle, but
Yeah.
he was an interesting person.
He was,
that's
very.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at one time we had a pet skunk that Mr. Frankham
Right.
brought his class out to meet, I think, at one time.
Mr. Frankham was always into animals.
Yes.
In his classroom, all over the place. So I could definitely see him taking them to see that.
And the skunk wasn't descented or anything. And it never sprayed any of the dogs, cats, people.
Did some one person own it?
No, it just wandered in and decided to stay.
Wow. So in Dorian, you had the rink in Hercot, but there was also a rink in Dorian, right? I just remember that being down the street there from the school.
Yeah.
Right. So you actually had lots of ice. Was there hockey teams in each community, do you think, or was it
I think it was more shinny than anything else.
Okay.
I don't think there wasn't a league or anything. There was nights that were designated as hockey nights, and I think it was like, okay, you're the captain, you pick your team kind of thing.
Okay, because I'm trying to think when our boys went there to play, was it really organized, or maybe they had a pickup team and they just went to play against the team in Hercot. Yeah. Really interesting then, for sure. And just give us a little bit, you must have had some summer activities out there, or did you?
There's a lot of chores. We had a market gardens when we were growing up. So my parents sold strawberries at one time. So us kids always had chores to do before anything else. We used to have a day camp at what we used to call the new beach. We'd do crafts and have swimming lessons and that there.
So that's in Hercot? And where would that be at the new, tell me where the new beach is.
Okay, it's where the Dorian Conservation Society area is now.
Right, okay.
So at one time that was called the new beach.
Okay.
So we used to swim there. We used to swim off the dock in Hercot and at Stewart Lake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right.
up the boat launch at Stewart Lake.
Right, not too far away.
Yeah.
Right, for sure. Yeah. Was there any, okay, you were talking about the fisheries there. Was there any woods operations of any kind in that? Like, what else would people have done economically?
Well, a lot of it was provincial papers was running up the Black Sturgeon area. So a lot of people worked there. That my mom actually worked for provincial papers as a cookie, and my dad worked at the mill. He started with Brompton when they first started, and retired when it was Domtar. I still have some of his. They used to get a little booklet for their
shift time. Oh.
Yeah, for their union stamps.
Oh, yes, right.
I have a couple of those still kicking around that were my dad's.
We got Herman's shift cards because they always had shift cards for everybody.
Yeah.
So you knew where you were going to work for the next year. You knew what shift you were going to be on. But
yeah.
Yes, right. I forgot about the little cards too.
Yeah, my dad worked in the woodroom.
Okay.
Him and Carlo Yarvola. Eldon Laporte maybe was there. But yeah, then my dad got hurt at the mill and he ended up retiring.
Okay.
So
that's the paper mill. Tell me, it's Hercot where that tree farm is, eh?
Where the tree farm?
No, where they grow the seedlings.
Oh, A&R greenhouses.
Right.
That came in probably 1980s, and that's Asperjan's and Frank Rauer, who has since passed, started that up. Okay. And it's still running to the day.
So to continue with, what's it called? Greenhouses.
Yeah, A&R greenhouses.
A&R. And I just was commenting that millions and millions of trees. Yeah. And it must have provided jobs. I used to see advertising. Yeah. So there was jobs. Were those jobs year-round or just a certain time of year?
It was seasonal, and because they'd have different times of the year where they'd be seeding and then thinning and then packing to ship out. So,
any ideas of where they ship to, Bernadette?
No.
Me neither. I don't ever think I remember that. But I remember that periodically they would show up and you get everybody at school would get one little one to take home with them and to plant.
Yeah.
They were very good about that. So, that's one thing. So, I assume it was a government project.
That I'm not really sure of.
That would be interesting too, because the government would have, bought trees from the lots of replanting in those days. Do you think there's as much today?
Yeah, there still is.
Okay.
Yeah, I planted trees.
Did you?
It is not a fun job.
No. Alice and Alan lasted 3 days, I think, and that's all.
Well, my mom was foreman, so like I had very little choice, right? So I'd be like, okay, it's almost quitting time, I'm done. And she'd go, oh no, you've got another 100 trees left in you, and send me back out to plant 100
So
more.
were you told to plant so many in a day?
Yes,
Right.
yeah, and you got paid by the tree.
So I always thought that was interesting. How do they know that you actually planted 400 trees? They didn't.
They didn't, but
They assumed people were doing it.
oh yeah, yeah.
But Nipigon was very active for a few years. The tree planters would all be here periodically in the summer times. So you're right, that was another thing that was happening economically in that area.
Ike Much was the contractor a lot of times.
What's he?
Yeah, so my mom worked for Ike, and then the rest of us. Hannah LaRock used to plant trees with us. Sylvia.
And I think Mr. Schmidt here at one time, you might not have known
Yeah, I
him,
don't think he was on our crew.
no, but he did do that. He used to take tree planters out in his old bus or something like that. So they took them to the site.
And we also did pine cone picking.
Right, explain that.
So to get the seeds for the greenhouses, we used to pick the pine cones and then package them up and then ship them off in these great big bags, and then they'd harvest the seed and ship them to the greenhouses for planting.
I remember hearing people talk about doing that.
It's a sticky job.
Yes. Oh, because of the
sap.
Sap.
And
so you're paid by the bagful, or by the bagful.
Yeah.
Right, which would be a weight, likely.
Yeah, it was all weight. Yeah.
Weight. Oh wow.
So, well, and the other thing that we used to have for summers when I was younger was 4-H.
Right.
Herc and Dorian was big into 4-H. We had different clubs, like the girls, we had home ec and learned how to sew and bake bread and different projects. Then my mom was a 4-H leader for the potato club, and everybody used to grow their potatoes, and then used to take an exhibit at the CLE.
Oh.
Back when it was major agriculture.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, and then
4-H was quite prominent. There was one in Nipigon as well, but I remember all those were sort of connected, and I would see articles about them periodically.
Yeah, and there was a forestry club that I was part of, and we had a plant. We learned about different soil samples and how to determine which trees would grow best where, and so then we all planted trees. And I planted 100, and there's 2 still living. I didn't have a really great success rate.
You picked the wrong soil, maybe. Did you? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's all those little things, though, Bernadette, that are part of the history of that Herc and Dorian area, and I'm sure people forgotten even about 4-H because it gradually died out, as did all those other youth groups.
Yeah.
Gradually died out, and it's too bad because they provided a lot of education, a lot of discipline, a lot of socialization, because I'm sure your 4-H groups went to Thunder Bay.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And
on a school bus with, they used to have a annual awards dinner, and everybody got dressed up, and we all climbed onto the bus. And it was either Charlotte or Bill or Snuffy Angeloff drove and took us all up there, brought us all home. And
I was just thinking, it's all, for all those youth groups, socializing with the other ones is a big part. From the guides to the scouts to the Sea Cadets to all of those things, it's the people that you meet that you remember.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
And, if what I remember big about Hercot, that if one family was struggling, everybody helped out.
Right.
So,
And That's the small community benefit of a small
Yeah.
community, isn't it? That everybody knows everybody, and you can quietly give support
Yes.
without it
Yeah.
affecting them. That's good.
Yeah, and
So-
back in the time with the party line on the phone, to the day my mom passed, she had a party line.
Did she?
There is only one other phone on it, but it was a party line.
Oh, explain that again, because I'm sure some people are going to listen and they're going to say, "Tell me about the party line."
Party line, there'd be 4 or 5 different households on the same phone line, and we all had our ring. So if somebody was calling our neighbor, and it would also ring in our house. So you had to figure out you had to remember what your ring was, like one long, two short.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes, people monopolize the phone, and
I'm sure they listened in on some
Oh, yeah.
conversations.
Oh,
yes. And I can remember somebody commenting, "Well, we know they're away, so we'll answer the ring and say they're not home."
yeah,
So
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
all kinds of advantages, disadvantages to a
yeah. Or
party
you'd
line.
pick up the phone to call somebody, and there'd be somebody talking. You go, "Oh, sorry," and hang back up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I can't even remember, would that have all come out of Thunder Bay party lines, or was it local?
No, it was local. I believe there was exchange in Dorian.
Okay. I know there was exchange in Nipigon, so
Yeah.
in Dorian too. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. One time you could call the operator and ask her what time it was.
Definitely. And I could remember seeing little stories about kids doing that.
Yeah.
Phoning the operator to tell them somebody was sick or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And getting help on the line. I forgot about that too. Interesting little things like that. Right. So Hercot has changed now.
Quite a bit. Quite a bit.
So the school building is left as
Yes,
a community center.
it's now the community center. They put a big addition on for the hall. Where the portable used to be is now the hall, and
And the hall is very popular. Is it Thanksgiving or your fall harvest meal?
Fall harvest.
People are there, I heard, an hour before it really starts.
yes,
Because it's well known.
yeah, and that was always a fundraiser for the cemetery board, because the cemetery board's all volunteer.
Right.
And of course there is charge for your plots and that there, but for the upkeep and that, like there's always flowers and that. My parents were volunteered on everything. Like my mom and dad both were on committees for the cemetery, for the community center. And then they brought in the local services board, and and the fire team. And
So what else is left down in Hercot area? Anything from those original times? Just homes now?
just homes, yeah.
Homes now. No stop for the train?
No,
No stop for the train.
no. At one time you could, flag it down, but you can't do that anymore.
Could you flag it down and get a ride to Thunder Bay?
At one time, I believe when there was still a station in Dorian. I think you used to have to go to Dorian.
Okay.
But they used to ship a lot of stuff by train. I know when I was little, we had ordered pigs to come in on the train. So we went to pick up the pigs and brought the crate home, opened it up, and lo and behold, there was a dog and not any pigs. So we got to keep the dog. But imagine the people who got the pigs that wanted the dog.
Oh, that's neat stories to do with that area, that's for sure. And that's why I was asking about the community hall, because even when I came here, that was the place to go certain nights for entertainment, was
Yes.
at the hall for a dance or
Yeah.
type of thing
Yep.
like that. I think I only went once, but I remember that being
Yeah,
a
the
very
Women's
popular
Institute
place.
Hall.
Right.
Yeah.
A very popular place
Yeah.
there.
I just remember the floor was, it was getting towards the end of its days, and the floor was wavy.
Right.
I remember doing one school concert, like Christmas concert there.
Okay. So the biggest thing there now is the strawberries.
Yes.
And is there still commercial fishing out of there?
There has been. I don't know what anybody's got for quotas in that now.
Okay. And are the planes still landing there?
I haven't been down in a while, but have been planes still there.
I think I saw a sign about not getting in the way of with your boat of the landing of the planes. But we do know that that is the strawberry place to go now.
Yes, and it used to be years ago too, where Nettles strawberries, the Gems strawberries, that used to be my uncle had a house there, and that was Fawcett's.
Okay.
So so that was Bob Fawcett lived there, and he also moved here from Manitoulin. So that's my Fawcett connection, and then Langtrees was my Aunt Annie who married Albert Langtree, which got into the Pollock family, and so
widely related.
Definitely, it was big family.
Yes, big family. Oh, good memories, Bernadette, for sure.
My dad always says, "Don't date in Dorian."
So where did you meet Joe?
Actually, here in Nipigon. He was here working for the railway. He's originally from Beardmore. He was born in Beardmore.
Oh.
His family kind of moved to wherever the work was. His parents were both born in Nova Scotia, one in Woods Harbor and one in Antigonish, and they moved here because the fishing was bad and the forestry industry was booming, so they came here. And then when lobster was getting to be a big thing, not a poor man's food, they went back and they fished again out of Shelburne, and then moved back to Thunder Bay. And then Joe's mom got sick, and the doctor had suggested that the West Coast climate would be better for her. So my father-in-law packed up the family, moved them all to the West Coast. And Joe and his brother-in-law were on their way to Toronto. And they stopped to visit here because he had gone to school with the Martins from Loon. So they stopped there, and just out of coincidence, they needed somebody on the railway. So brother-in-law kept on going because he had a job in Toronto, and Joe stayed here and worked for the railway.
It's surprising because I've heard that story a couple of times. People come to visit or they stop here and they end up with a job. Wow. And so we know that Joe just retired after 38 years on the railway. So
38.6. He corrects me all the time.
So we have to keep after him, Bernadette, because he's got lots of history just like you do.
When he first started with the railway, he was in a motor car and swinging hammered, spikes, and everything was manual. And now they have the trucks that you're warm in the winter, and you got air conditioning in the summer, and hydraulic things that work. And it's a pretty amazing transition in 38 years. So
we'll have to keep after him to come and talk about it. Thank you very much for coming today. That's excellent. Lots of good information there. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.